Nothing. Oh, there goes.
Testing, testing. Can you hear that back there? Okay.
Are we ready? Okay. Good evening. Call this Community Redevelopment Agency meeting to order. It is October 14th, 2014 at 6:01 p.m. Please stand for the invocation followed by the Pledge of Allegiance. Heavenly Father, we seek your blessings on the task before us this evening. Tonight we will interview several individuals for the position of CRA Executive Director. We ask you to bless our efforts with clear insight, our deliberations with wisdom, our work with clarity and accuracy, and our decisions with impartiality. Amen.
Amen.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Ms. Parham, roll call, please.
Chair Weller,
Here.
Vice Chair Barnes is absent. Member Bass,
Here.
Member Gestrin,
Present.
Member Jameson is also absent. Member Newcomb,
Present.
Member Williams, also absent.
All right. The agenda right now calls for approval of the minutes, but before we move into that, I would like to see if we could amend the agenda. Our attorney's not here right now, but she forwarded a memorandum to us in regards to this position that we are looking to hire someone into. The question as to whether the individual would be an independent contractor or an employee of the city. Hopefully she'll be here within a few minutes, but I think this is something we need to put first on the agenda so that the individuals that we are interviewing know exactly what type of position they would be going to if they're hired. So I would entertain a motion to amend the agenda to add this item to the agenda.
I move that we add, as you described, and change the agenda to include what you had mentioned.
Is there a second?
Second.
All right, we have a motion made by Member Gestrin, seconded by Member Bass, to amend the agenda to include a discussion on the memorandum regarding an independent contractor that was submitted by our attorney.
That's correct.
Any questions on that? Any questions from the audience? All those in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed indicate by saying no. Motion passes 4-0. Thank you. Okay, so now it's number one, and she's not here yet. But I will, just so the audience knows, and for the citizens who may be listening to this, at the last CRA meeting, the board had discussed whether the individual that we would be hiring as executive director would be an independent contractor or as an employee of the city. The board voted that this should be an independent contractor. We received a memorandum, I believe it came in yesterday, from our city attorney in reference to this issue, and basically indicated that in order to be an independent contractor, there were several factors that needed to be considered. She went into the factual background, and what really came down to was, or on the discussion part of it, was that something dealing with the Internal Revenue Service, stating that the Internal Revenue Service has regulations regarding the classification of whether an individual is considered an employee or independent contractor. The following factors are considered. 1, the degree of control exercised by the principal. 2, which party invests in the work facilities used by the worker. 3, the opportunity of the individual for profit or loss. 4, whether the principal can discharge the individual. 5, whether the work is part of the principal's regular business. 6, the permanency of the relationship. 7, whether the worker is paid for the job or by the time. 8, the relationship the parties believed they were creating. And 9, the provision of employee benefits. These are the issues that were raised by our city attorney, and since I'll give her a few seconds here to get herself settled, but I will read the conclusion, and then she can go into more detail on that if that would be okay. The conclusion is to avoid reclassification of the executive director as an employee rather than the board's preferred independent contractor. The board and the city should be cognizant not to exert control over the means and methods of the executive director's work and be mindful of the other factors. Because of the CRA board's expectation of the CRA director's responsibilities in employment, it will be difficult to maintain the independent contractor relationship of the parties. Accordingly, the city attorney's office would recommend the CRA director be considered an employee under the purview of the city manager. If the board intends to proceed with the independent contractor relationship, a contractor will be drafted to clearly delineate the parties' rights and responsibilities. Ms. Johnson, would you like to elaborate on this any further?
This was just a follow-up of our conversation at our last meeting between an employee and an independent contractor, and it was my advice and the finance director's advice last time was that you proceed with this relationship as an employee. And after I left the meeting, I became more concerned about the potential control this board would have over the independent contractor position. So I wanted to advise you all of the potential problems should you go with an independent contractor relationship.
Okay. Ms. Gessner, do you have a question?
I do, thank you. What were your concerns in detail? Because in the last meeting, and is it up on the website? Okay.
It was specifically, if you classified the relationship as an independent contractor and the IRS investigated, the IRS isn't going to be as concerned whether or not you call it an independent contractor relationship or an employee relationship. They're going to look at the factors that are in that memo and make that determination for themselves. So should the IRS come in and determine that this really should have been an employment relationship and that's what you've created, then the city would be responsible for back employment taxes on that. There's potential issues with workers' compensation, with an employee having rights under a personnel policy, things like that, that you might say it's an independent contractor, and depending on how those factors play out over time, that person could still have rights as an employee, even though that wasn't what you anticipated.
Is there a conflict as far as hiring someone new and not giving the opportunity to maybe somebody that's already on staff that's part-time or would be interested? I mean, as far as the union goes, do we have to make that available if it is an employment position?
But this was available.
Okay.
This was an open bid that anyone could have bid for, any of your current employees.
But it was as a contract person?
When it first went out, you hadn't made the decision until last meeting that this was going to be an independent contractor versus an employee. That's my understanding.
Right. We did not follow the procedure that we do for hiring an employee. When we have a position and it's an employee position, we internally post the position for 5 days prior to advertising. So any current employees can apply for the position. This was advertised in the paper, was not posted. I mean, they could see it in the paper, but it was not internally posted as a regular employee position.
Was the reason you didn't is just because, I mean, it was available to the whole world as well as staff, or?
I did not treat it as an employee because at the time it was said to be a contract position.
Okay. Now, what I'm hearing now is, are you recommending because of IRS that perhaps we need to reconsider this?
Yes, it's still my recommendation that this person is an employee of the city.
In our last conversation, thank you.
Yes, go ahead.
In the last meeting, and I haven't had a chance to replay it, but one of my concerns, it sounded like the relationship between this person, and we've always had an executive director, it's just been the city manager up until now, and we're making a change. But my concern was what was being listed as responsibilities was, it sounded like a lot of negotiation between the executive director and the county, and decisions being made because of the 10-year extension. That there, I mean, as I recall, there was discussions with the county attorneys and so forth, and it sounded like decisions were going to be made. And again, my concern is circumventing the elected officials with those decisions. We'll have to go back and replay that. But
Right.
my
Well,
concern is the responsibility that we're giving this person that's an appointed position for the first time. And actually, it sounded like circumventing the board and the commission in decision-making, being as they carry it back to the unelected, the charter officers. That's not been worked out, and there are big changes being made in our relationship between the county, it looks like, and the city. So how is that going to be worked out?
I probably spoke out of turn last time in terms of this executive director taking a role in terms of working with the county and working on an extension. That's certainly something that your city manager, your city attorney's office can work with. And if that's not a position or a role that you want this executive director to take to be a part of that process, if you want that role to focus on the projects and other things that the CRA board does, that's fine too, and that could still be delineated in a contract with that person. That can be up to the board, what kind of a role you would want this position to take.
I don't mind you speaking out of turn, because I feel like it actually gave another avenue of what we needed to consider in this as we move forward and making these changes. My concern is, and if it needs to be, and I think it does, spelled out in a contract form of what is expected, like a job description, maybe we need to do that, because there's so many things happening so quickly, and I would rather us, consider that as far as what is needed. Because again, we're spending tax dollars. I realize the CRA is different, but it is tax dollars paid by the taxpayer. And I think we need to really be considerate of what we're doing and why before we make these changes. And again, I go back to what was suggested by the head person for CRA, or, advisor, Carol. Anyway, our city's not that big, and she recommended that someone on staff actually take this position. Now, I realize I'm just one voice, but I think we need to consider, because our decisions we make affect commissions and relationships, what we do 10 years later. So I think we need to be real careful how we're spending our money and the precedent we're setting. So I would be for spelling out exactly, specifically, what duties are allowed and not. Because I really don't want the elected official to be too far removed from the center of the decision. And it seems to have happened quite a bit, not by design maybe, I don't know, but it's worked out that way. So I think we need to be very cautious. Thank you. Appreciate your work.
Anybody else?
Yeah,
Member
and
Bass?
looking at what we presented as duties and responsibilities, I just scanned it real quick. I don't see anything in here that would, everything I see in here would be a liaison between the CRA district and the CRA board, which is made up primarily of the city commission. And whether you go with an employee position or a contract position, from what I'm reading here of what we expect out of a CRA executive director, this CRA executive director would be under the CRA board. And the CRA board, if I'm not mistaken, is under in cooperation with the city and the city manager and the city attorney's office. So I don't see any reason, whether you do it with an employee or with a contract, I really don't see that big of a difference.
We are a separate agency, even though it's made up of commissioners
Right.
and two business individuals. We don't act in the capacity as commissioners on this board. We act as a separate agency.
But aren't you under the auspices of the city?
You're really considered a separate agency. You're not, you're bound by the fact of what your plan says.
Right, which we
Yeah.
have our plan.
It would be, we don't get direction, if we were all separate individuals
Right.
and not commissioners, we would not be getting direction from the commissioners. We have certain obligations to them. We have to report to them if we're gonna make a change, that type of thing. But, I mean, it just turns out that we happen to be, the majority of us are the commissioners, and so those lines kind of get blurred because of that, I think. I have, I have a real problem with the person being an employee. I certainly think the person should be a contract employee, but if our city attorney is advising us that the person should be an employee, then I guess I'm of the opinion that we should go that way. The person as an employee of the city then really is under the city, reports to the city manager, and basically ends up kind of like being on loan to the board to do the board's work.
Then why hire a CRA executive director with CRA funds if it's gonna be a city employee?
Right. Well, that's why we were saying it should be, I think the majority of us thought it should be a contractual situation. Member Newcomb.
Thank you. I seem to recall, and I would have to go back and listen, but the Kessler audit that we had done several years ago, one of the problems that we had, as I recall, was that monies were being funneled to this and that operation without any accountability to the CRA board. Now, whether that was an oversight or, people weren't doing their homework or what, I don't know. But it seems to me that at the last meeting that this was discussed, that even Mr. Booth said that he would rather that this position not be under his auspices, because that's just one more hat he has to wear. Plus, if it's not under the city manager's control and that person is reporting to the board as to what's being done, and basically then we have some control over what's being done. As it is, the charter that we currently have, everything, to my understanding, has to go through Mr. Booth. Whether that's right or wrong, we all have our opinion on that. But still in all, I understand what Ms. Westmoreland has recommended, and that she says that a contract position is generally with a larger city and that type of thing, but I think it needs to be spelled out specifically who's going to have the final word on what's done.
Member Castro?
Because the area of chain of command, in the past, the city manager, I think, and maybe the city planner assumed that position at different times. My concern is not having it spelled out, and if it's not under the jurisdiction of the city attorney, and it is back to the board, what was discussed last meeting was a lot of responsibility given to this individual making decisions with the county, not necessarily coming back to the board first. That hasn't been spelled out. And it also is not written that way concerning the charter. So we really have someone who's a contract position or even an employee making directional changes, goal changes, relationship changes with the county, and no accountability to anybody, and especially not the electorate, the voters, the taxpayers. My concern is if we are a separate board, something that has been fairly new in the way items have been handled, then why is it that so much of the decision making is given back to the full commission without the board? We've voted on all kinds of things the last 2 years, which normally in the past it would have been voted by the CRA, but they were deferred back to the commission on different positions, monies and so forth. But you bring up a good point. I mean, it seems to have switched where I'm not so sure that's been correct as well. It's a new change in procedure. So if we are independent, then the commission shouldn't be voting on items for the CRA. I mean, that seems to be a gray area now. I mean, as to who's going to do what, when, where. There have been several times where votes have come up before the commission, and it perhaps maybe should have been a CRA vote instead. There's a blending there, a gray area that's been created in the last couple of years. So I think we need to really nail this down. I feel very uncomfortable giving someone a position that we really don't have defined clearly, expectations and responsibilities, and we have the assurance of an accountability back to this board and the commission. This board, even though it's independent, is still a city board. My concern is for the taxpayer. If there has to be an accountability, and there is none if you're not involved in the decision making. And if you appoint this person to negotiate with the city attorney, as it was stated, and county manager, that's a change in procedure, and it's really not written down. I guess we can put it in the contract, like you said, but we need to look at that. What assurances? And if let's take it just another thought. If we have it all laid out, and let's say they violate that, what can you do about it anyway? I mean, unless there's a majority to get rid of somebody, things have to get so bad that all of the options you have left is fire them. There's no real balance in that kind of relationship. It's not enough enforcement, or there's nothing you can do better, especially if you have a contract. So I don't know. Those are things to think about.
It is true that in most CRAs are independent of the city. This is sort of unusual, and you might be able to, or may look at changing it in your 10-year plan to change the makeup. Maybe not quite so many commissioners, just 2 or 3, and the majority would be from the city itself appointed. It generally a director works for the board and is appointed by the board, and it's totally independent of the city.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
Here, it's very much different than most CRAs. We have kind of integrated the city in the CRA in that you have the majority, which is the commission, does the budget and makes decisions and such. You might think about changing that when we do the 10-year plan to do the next 10 years.
But in the
Thank you.
meantime,
But in the meantime,
Attorney Johnson.
I was going to say, you can kind of have a hybrid of what you want. We can still have this person be a city employee that we are paying employment taxes on, and have a contract with this person outlining the responsibilities for this position that you want to see, and have this person reporting to you, and anything else that you would have wanted to include in some of the independent contractor relationship.
My problem with that is that I don't believe in the contract, if this person is an employee, that if this board decides they do not want the services of that person anymore, we may say as a board, you're not our executive director anymore, but you're still an employee of the city, and you are reporting to the manager. The manager is the only one that can terminate that employment.
Yeah.
So that's one reason, where I have a real problem with this idea of this person being an employee. And I apologize to those that are here waiting to be interviewed. We thought we had this squared away at the last meeting, and now this wrinkle's been thrown into it, unfortunately, and I don't think it's fair to you to not know what your position would be as far as reporting without us having this being determined before we could go through with the interviews, and we probably will tonight, but it may be that because I don't know if this is something we can resolve tonight or not, and it may be that we will end up postponing that decision until we have a clear idea and that you have a clear idea as to what that position, how you would be in that position, how you'd be handled in that position. Member Bass?
I'm going to go back. If I'm not mistaken, this executive director, High Springs Community Redevelopment Agency, that if I'm not mistaken, this is what they looked at when they were applying for the job, right?
Mm-hmm.
There is nothing in here that says anything about them being able to work with the county or anything else. This just says what their job would be under the direction of the CRA board.
Exactly.
And if they filled out an application based on this, and then we're going to possibly change it, then I don't see how we can even proceed until we know what we're doing.
First of all, I don't see,
I agree with you. I think it should be a contract. I really do. But
I don't see it an issue as far as dealing with the county. It's quite clear to me that whether the person is a contract employee or employee of the city, that person is an employer of ours or employee of the city. And that person acts as a go-between with direction from the CRA board as to what they want. And as far as the county goes, that's only for your approval at this point, or actually down the road, for that 10-year plan.
right.
All other aspects of it is the day-to-day operations of the CRA board, and that is communicating with the citizens, doing whatever the projects are, bringing out information, doing reports for us. This whole thing with the county and the city attorney is just is a step that not only this board has to do, but the commission has to do in order to extend the CRA board for the CRA district for another 10 years. And as our city attorney indicated last time, that one of those steps would be to work with the planners at the county to make sure that whatever we come up with as a plan for that 10 years, that the staff at the county level are comfortable with it. And that information would be whoever's in this position would actually be the go-between, going between the board and the county on that issue, with the board directing that individual as to what we want in that plan. So I don't see that as a real issue. Commissioner Gestrin.
Actually, I see it as an issue because you're dealing with another level of government, and because decisions are being made that impact the city. As a contract laborer, being the go-between, actually, in a lot of ways, that's probably why we had the city manager as the executive director, because I don't think anybody, certainly not contract labor, should be making those kinds of go-between between the city, the commission, and the county, especially if we have no real, this is our first trial out. I think those types of negotiations should be left to the city manager and not an executive director at all, because we are being defined, and I can see this as an independent committee hugely if we were a larger city, But the releasing it without having it defined and actually good reasons to do it this way when it has worked well in the past. The other way, the only thing is we just never really activated what we could have done, I think, as far as business development. But that's neither here nor there. There's no guarantees. I just feel uncomfortable having a contract laborer being the go-between between our city, this board, and the county when these kinds of decisions are being made. And again, it pushes the commission, who is elected by the voter and the taxpayer, too far from the centers of decisions, and they're the last ones to know, which we see that has happened with other issues, and it shouldn't be that way. I think it's just been a byproduct of the way it's been set up. So.
All right, I want to wrap this up. Member Boss?
I just want to go one more time back to what we presented to these people that were filling out applications. What's in this guideline has nothing to do with whether they negotiate with the county, whether they are, there's just nothing in here about that. So is that something that would be made, a decision would be made by the CRA board when it comes time for that?
It would be if the CRA board wanted that individual to act as a go-between. It could be a CRA board member that does it.
Right.
That would be a decision of the board.
Right, because everything in here that I see, and I have read this several times, this executive director would use these guidelines that we came up with to do the liaison between the CRA district and the CRA board and get done what needs to be done to make progress in this city for the CRA district. And that's what this job is. I mean, that's what it says in here. And this other stuff that you're talking about, that's later, I think.
Okay. Yes.
I kind of see the function. Once you select a board member, I will no longer come.
Mm-hmm.
I see the function that when there needs to be interaction between the city, such as public works, maybe fire, police, or whatever, then that person would come to me. We would then interact with the city, with the CRA. But basically, the CRA director will be taking all their direction from this board. And I'm not going to be here to second guess or to do that. They're pretty much independent.
Okay. I'm actually of the opinion that, I understand that we've been told, that smaller cities don't generally have an executive director, but larger cities do. Have independent contractors. So, I'm really of the opinion that we should just go, I know I'm saying not going, as far as going with what the attorney is saying, or has said in her memorandum, but I'm really of the opinion we should just go ahead and make this an independent contractor. Now, that obviously with this being come up, I think should take another vote. Well, maybe not, I don't know, because we had the motion last time that it would be an independent contractor. So I'm assuming that we would probably not have to take another vote, it would just stand as it is.
Right, you can maintain that. I just want to clarify that the larger cities that are having the independent contractors are often not having an individual independent contractor. They are contracting with a company that then is supplying these individuals to help and do the work. And that was one of my concerns too, was with you having an independent contractor as an individual. If there was a company and you were creating an independent contractor relationship with that company, the company then is controlling more of the work to have an independent contractor relationship. So that company can then send somebody to do the work. And that's usually how it seems like the South Florida CRAs are set up in the larger cities. But yes, you already made a motion last time and voted on that. So if you want to stay with that, if that's the will of the CRA, then you don't need to take another vote on that.
Okay, thank you. Anybody else? Anybody from the audience would like to have anything to say? All right, so Unless someone wants to make a motion to change what we've done, what we've previously done, we'll move forward with the interview process. No? Okay. Oh, I'm sorry, yes. I guess we got into that beforehand, didn't we? Sorry. Okay, we obviously jumped over the approval of the minutes for August 11th, September 6th. So going back up to that on the agenda, is there a motion to approve the minutes for the August 11th and September 6th, 2014? I'll entertain a motion to approve those minutes.
So move.
All right, we have a motion on the floor. Do we have a second?
Second.
All right. Member Bass made the motion, seconded by Member Newcomb, to approve the minutes of August 11th, September 6th. Any discussion? All those in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed indicate by saying no.
No.
Motion passes 3-1 with Member Geston objecting. Opposing, I'm sorry. Okay. Now, the next item on the agenda is to determine the order of interviews for the following applicants for the position of Executive Director. The individuals are Basti Gonzalez, Amanda Rodriguez, Emma Tyrella, and Xiaoming Zhang. What we had determined at the last meeting was that we would put the 4 names in a hat or a cup. We will draw the names in order, and then that's how the interview will occur. Now, for those that are here for the interview, because this is a public meeting, no one is required to leave the building or the room while the interviews take process or go on. Unless that individual or individuals desire to do so. The actual process will be that the person will be interviewed. Each board member will ask 2 questions. And in order to be fair to the applicants, as to at least the first one having more time, not having more time to think about their answers, at the end of the interview process, each applicant will be given a couple of minutes to come up and address the board on anything they may want to. After that, we will then rank the applicants, 4 being the higher number for the preferred individual. Each member will rank the applicants. They'll be given to Ms. Parham, who will then calculate the points and then advise us as to who the highest ranking individual is. And that will be the applicant that will be offered the position pending a vetting of the background of the individual. Is there anything else I need to specify, Ms. Parham?
Yes, ma'am. You actually have 4 applicants in there, 4 names. And will the applicants please raise their hands that are in attendance?
2.
So apparently only 2 have attended. We did hear from the last applicant. He advised that he could not attend tonight, but he is requesting to be interviewed on a different day. He said either Wednesday or Thursday of this week after 1 that he is available. So it's up to the board whether they want to hold another meeting to interview him. And I have not heard from Ms. Tyrella, so I don't know.
Okay. So, okay, Ms. Emma Tyrella and Mr. Xiaoming Zhang are not here.
That's correct.
Okay. Well, I guess the board would like to make a determination as to how they want to handle the 2 absentee applicants in light of the fact that one applicant has evidently couldn't make it and asked for another interview. What's your pleasure?
For me personally, I know I can't do it tomorrow. I could possibly do it Thursday afternoon, but.
Anybody have an objection to continuing the interview?
Let me just state that legally you don't have to.
Right. Okay.
Legally you don't have to. You've offered the opportunity for the individuals to come and interview.
Mm-hmm.
And it's not necessary for you to bend to their schedule. So, I mean, it's up to
Okay.
the board. I'm just telling you that you're not legally bound to it.
I have one question. How much notice did they have of this tonight?
Contacted the day after the last CRA meeting.
Which was,
We met on the 16th. Yes, it was the September 17th.
Okay.
We heard back from 3 of the applicants right away. The 4th, Mr. Zhang, we did not hear from him for several days. We had to call him several times.
Okay.
And he advised he didn't know whether he could make it or not, but he did call Friday and say he couldn't. So
this past Friday.
this past Friday.
I move we go ahead with the interviews and be through with it.
All right, Ms. Johnson, do we need to make that a motion, or is it just a consensus of the board?
You can make a motion that you're just going to interview, the motion is you're just going to interview the applicants who are here tonight and continue with ranking, making a decision.
All right, we have a motion on the floor to go ahead and continue, to go ahead and do the interviews of those individuals that are here tonight and not reschedule for interviewing anyone that could not be here. That was made by Member Bass. Do I have a second? All right, who do I pass the gavel to? Our vice chair's not here.
I would pass it to Ms. Gestrin, who I believe would be the most senior member left on the commission, or I'm sorry, the board.
Okay.
All right, I'll second the motion to move forward with the interviews.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Nay.
So it fails.
Thank you. Motion failed.
All right, being that, then we can go ahead with the interviews tonight. What I would suggest we do is that when those, when we schedule the other two, if they are still interested in the position, that we advise the two applicants that we are interviewing tonight as to when that meeting, it will be a public meeting, so that they may attend that meeting as well. I think that seems fair. Member Johnson? I'm sorry, Attorney Johnson. Okay. Well, all right, we've got 4 names in here. We'll pull the names out and see what order, and if they're here, they're here. If they aren't, we'll do it again for the 2 that are remaining. Okay, Mr. Zhang was the first one I pulled. He was not here. Ms. Tyrella? Again, is not here. Okay.
We're doing really well. We're on a roll.
Ms. Gonzalez? Who is here? Will be the first interviewee. And Ms. Amanda Rodriguez will be the second. Okay. Ms. Gonzalez, would you come up to the podium, please? Good evening. Thank you for being here.
For having me here.
As I indicated, we all have your resume, and each member will be asking you 2 questions for you to respond to. And as I indicated at the end, you may respond back or come back and make a statement to the commission if you'd like. Ms. Newcomb, would you like to go first, please?
Sure. As the executive director of the CRA, how would you promote increased knowledge of what the CRA is about and what it can offer to the business community as well as to the homes that are in the historic district?
I think that we need to start by sending them letters that we have grants, that we are here for them. I know that in the farmer's market, when I knew these grants were available, and some of the merchants would come and visit, I would tell them that these grants are available. But I do think that we need to really go out door to door or a letter, making it known that this is available for them. I don't think that many people come to this meeting. I've been here several years, and it's a very selected kind of people that come. And mostly if they have something to offer the CRA or ask the CRA. So I do think that we need to go door to door, make more of an effort to let them know that we're here.
Okay. Oh, you want me to ask the second
No, I
question?
think what we'll do is we'll just each one ask one and then we'll come back.
Yeah.
So that way. Member Bass?
She just asked one of my questions, but my other question is, and I'm assuming I can ask this, I'm going to. In our qualifications for the executive director, I noticed that one of the things we did was either or, option 1 or 2. Option 1 was a 4-year bachelor's degree. Option 2 was a 2-year associate degree with work. And I'm looking on your application, and I see real estate school, I see Contractor Institute, banking and financing with real estate, professional cosmetologist, but I really don't see, based on our requirements, anything that specifically met our requirements. So I'm just curious.
I was here at that meeting, and I think that what was asked was either a bachelor's degree, some sort of degree, or life experience.
Well, it says 2-year associate degree from an accredited college or university with emphasis on business administration and or management. General financial knowledge required. And then underneath that it was work experience, computer skills. But my question is, based on that, why do you think you're qualified for this?
I think that I'm qualified. I'm state licensed in banking and financing. I've been a merchant since I'm 11 years old. I know my city, our city, and I know our merchants. I work with them in different types of events that we've had. I think I know, especially when it comes to facade, and I have an example which I won't disclose, but they weren't going to do the facade. They couldn't visualize the facade. And I went in to help a little bit. And they were mixing an 18th century facade with a 19th century facade. And I kind of let them know that that wasn't going to be the best for their investment. That's their building. And being that I've been in the building industry since I'm a child, and I am a developer, and I've worked with city, and I've worked with private sector and public sector, I think that qualifies me to know what this board wants and will ask of me. And I think I'm qualified.
Okay, thank you.
Member Gestrom?
Thank you. What assurances can you give as far as the relationship between the county and the city? And actually, even though there's not a statement in the memorandum, which you haven't seen, but in the way it was advertised, there is a lot of discussion between different agencies and yourself. What will you do to keep the commission and the CRA board informed?
I think that it's the job of the executive director to let the board know everything that they know. It has to be a cohesive relationship of letting the right hand know what the left hand is doing. I think it's very important in any relationship to have a clear understanding and to have a plan and work the plan. I'm not one that works very, I don't like to work with no plan. You don't know where you're going. There's no guidance. I know most of you know my partner. He's 90. And you work the plan and you make the plan. And you stick by that. And if you have a good relationship and a good understanding, it avoids a misunderstanding. And that's how I think I would.
Okay.
Can we
Thank you.
ask her a second question? Or?
No, I'm going to ask mine
Okay.
and then we'll
All right.
do that.
Thanks. Thank you.
What do you see as the most important issue or issues to be tackled as a CRA executive director?
The 3-year plan. I think that we need parking. I think that we need to start working with our merchants and facade. I think we need to make the city safer so it can be more enjoyable by speed bumps near the chamber and farmers market. That is an accident to be happen. I think we need to put signs that we stop for pedestrians. We need to make this city pedestrian friendly. We can't be a walkable community because we are COD. They make decisions for us that I think we should have some sort of say-so, but that's not the way it is. So I think if we make the city safer, if we move forward in our 3-year plan, and of course then if we get the 10-year plan, then we move forward on that. But if we just stick to the 3-year plan and get it done, then I think the merchants and the residents of High Springs will see that something's happening. Something's being created.
Okay. Thank you. Member Newcomb?
Okay, I think we were all in each other's back pockets when we were asking these questions and writing them down because she just took mine. One of the things that I would be interested in knowing is that there are several merchants in town that they are trying to endeavor to get grants to help them with the business that they are trying to accomplish. Do you have grant writing experience?
I helped with the Farmers Market Pavilion.
Okay.
And I will honestly say that that was the only grant that I helped write.
Okay.
But there are other grants. There's a special thing called, when I went to Washington, D.C., there's a thing called Save America.
Mm-hmm.
And those grants, that, and the project is really new. It started October of last year. And they're targeted to small towns like us,
Mm-hmm.
and to save our merchants energy. And what they do is they have a liaison, which would be the executive director, and they get a survey done. And then historical preservation, which is Save America, works with the local utility. What they do is they come in and they try to save our merchants and their utility bills. There are many grants like this. They're
Mm-hmm.
available out there and they're free.
Mm-hmm.
Some of them, some utility companies come in and change all your light bulbs so that you can save. And I don't know, I'll speak for myself, when I started to be independent
Mm-hmm.
and an entrepreneur, that every penny saved is a penny earned. And in this economy,
Mm-hmm.
we need to save as much as we can. And that's profit for them and money for their kids and their home.
Mm-hmm.
Member Boss?
Trying to think. 12, 30, about 14 years ago, some of the merchants in High Springs went together and did the Gainesville Sun had a full page on the back of their Scene magazine, and they would highlight a community once a month. And I know that Micanopy did it, we did it, Alachua did it, and it just kind of fell apart, and then the Gainesville Sun quit doing that. And I know we've had discussions in here about the billboards out there on the interstate, and personally, as a business owner, I feel like we're really dropping the ball on that. I think we had that interstate so close to us, and we could really be pulling off of that. I talked to a lot of antique dealers and shops in Ocala, and they have just really jumped on the bandwagon with the billboards and said their businesses have just increased since they've done that. I know that it came back from the attorney's office that the CRA possibly would not be able to pay for a billboard based on Mrs. Westmoreland, and I have not met her, I don't know who she is, but anyway, as a business owner, I just feel like we need to do everything possible to help our businesses in High Springs, especially the downtown. We have wonderful restaurants. We have wonderful little shops. We have everything that anybody could ever want. within a 3-block. And I just wonder how you feel about mainly the thing with the billboard. And then the other thing is, several years we had a walking map for the city of High Springs, which the merchants did. We all took part in that, and we had a walking map. I guess my question is, how do you feel about that as far as helping the businesses that are already here, that have been here for years? You know, I know it's wonderful to have new businesses come in, but if we don't support the mainstay of who's here, then we're losing, I think. And I just, how do you feel about all that?
I remember I've only been here 9 years, and I've always wanted to do something called the Merchants of the Round Table. I think the CRA needs to hear our merchants, and I think we just don't need to hear them, we need to act. I'm a go-getter. If I get this job, I don't want to sit in an office. I want the city of High Springs, the merchants of High Springs, to know that we are taking care of them. If we lose our merchants, we lose our city.
Yes.
Because the merchants come first, and then comes the city, and then the residents. So it's of most importance that we keep the ones that we have. The ones that come new, you know, we'll welcome them, but right now we're almost fully occupied. I just went to Alachua, and there's more than 7 businesses closed, and it looks terrible. You see, for rent. So I think to maintain, and that's why I want to do America, Save America, because I think that some of our merchants, which are on our audience, if we can save them $100, it's going to keep them there a month or 2 more. And then by that time, if we get momentum, then we can say, just hold on a little bit more. We're there. And I think we're there. I think it's just a matter of making the plan and working the plan.
Member Kester?
What assurances can you give when you make your decisions? What will be your goals? I mean, you mentioned the 3-year plan, but as a business person, what makes you tick? What are the things that you see that you'll address every day, every week? What are your goals as far as how you conduct yourself?
I don't understand the question.
Okay. You get to point A to point Z one step at a time. You as a business person, how do you function when you are giving a new task, a new position?
I'm hyperactive.
What are the things you do? How would you
first of
address
all,
it?
let's say that the dais tells me, Basti, we need parking. Let's put that as
Okay.
the first thing I would do is, where can we get parking for free? I am a person that doesn't like to spend money if I don't have to. Then I would follow the procedures to bring it back to the dais to say, in my opinion, I think this is what should be done. At the end of the day, the dais makes the decision. I'm just here to kind of clarify or research what I think will be best for the city. That's my job. Again, the dais will make the decision whether I move forward or I don't.
How do you motivate yourself? I mean,
I have God.
In this new position, how will you daily?
They motivate me.
Okay.
Farmers market motivates me.
Okay.
This is my town. My father's here. My mother's here. My sisters are here. My brothers are here. My cousins are here. My best friend just bought a house. That motivates me.
What do you think tell me, as a person, your strengths and weaknesses? What do you, where are you at? How well?
Were you into another third question
Well,
here?
That's okay.
Well, she wanted me to explain what I was saying.
Okay.
So.
I think that motivation comes from oneself.
Okay.
To be an entrepreneur,
Mm.
you have to be motivated. You won't survive. I think in my application you saw that I was there 16 years of my life. And it's because I'm motivated. I wake up every morning and say, thank you. Read my book,
You like what you do.
move on. That's what motivates me.
Okay, thank you. All right.
Okay.
Thanks.
What experience do you have in dealing with the board, and how would you ensure that you have an effective relationship with the board?
Dealing with the board for 9 years, the commission. Been coming to the CRA for different reasons, but not as much as the commission. I also dealt with the planning board, and when the housing board was there, I also dealt with them. I think that it's about having a trust relationship. You trust that what I'm telling you is the truth, and I trust that what you are suggesting to me is for the best of the city. And listen, and be very, very assured of what you're asking of me. If I don't know what you're asking of me, I will ask, I don't quite know what you want from me. And then that way, a clear understanding avoids a misunderstanding. That way, people can move forward.
Okay. All right, thank you.
Thank you. I thought you were going to have a third question.
Well, 3 of our members are gone, so maybe we could.
That's true.
That's right.
I think we're having a hard enough time with this.
Taking
Ms.
each other's
Rodriguez?
questions.
Good evening.
Hi, how are you?
I'm very well. How are you guys?
Thank you. Thank you for coming tonight.
Thank you.
And again, I apologize for the whole thing going on here, but sometimes that happens.
Yes, it does. I work with boards. I understand.
Okay. I think we'll start with Ms. Gestrin on the questions.
Okay. Why did you apply, and how are you going to make a difference?
Well, I love government. I've loved government my whole life. I love the idea of working for the people, and I take the responsibility very seriously. I applied for the job because I have lived in this area most of my life. I am from upstate New York, but I've lived around here for over 20 years. I love High Springs. My husband works in High Springs. I love to bring my kids up here. And I feel like in a small town, you can really make a big difference because the people are invested in it much more than in a big city. And I love that small town atmosphere, and I just want to work with a board to maintain the small town atmosphere while still, moving it along and modernizing and facing the challenges that are coming. As funding gets tighter, more challenges are presented to community redevelopment, and they have to be very good stewards, and they have to look for new ways to diversify their funding. And I feel like that's what I could do here for the community redevelopment.
Okay, thank you.
Ms. Bass?
I'm going to ask the same questions that I asked the other.
Right.
Can't remember what the first one was.
Maybe I can help you.
Okay.
Because you did mine.
Well, don't be asking my question. I've only got 2.
Oh, that's right. Yeah, on your application, I was looking at it. You had, let's see if I can find it here. You're currently enrolled in the Masters of Public Administration
Yes.
at Florida Gulf Coast. You're doing that online?
Yes.
So applying for this job, it being, 20 hours or 25 hours a week? 20 hours a week?
Mm-hmm.
So you think you'll have plenty of time to really dedicate yourself to this position?
Oh, absolutely. I've always worked throughout college. I never had the luxury of just attending. I've always had to work. And as you look, my grades have never suffered because of it, and neither has my job performance. If anything, I think it makes it better because I can take what I am learning right then and apply it to the position that I am in, and both back and forth. So I think my job benefits from me going to college at the same time, and I think my college benefits from me having a job in that field. So I think that both of them would win, and I don't see how in any way there would be any problems with it.
Member Newcomb?
Okay, same question. As the executive director, how would you promote increased knowledge about the CRA, what it has to offer to both the business people in our community as well as to the homeowners that are in the historic district?
Well, I have over 7 years experience of marketing experience and community engagement. So like Ms. Gonzalez said, it really is about communicating with the businesses and the homeowners and just letting them be aware of who we are, what we have to offer, and coming together to develop, ways to improve their business that is beneficial for both them and for the city, that they see us as an ally, that something they can go to, a tool that they can use to improve their business, and at the same time, by their improving their business, we will be reaping the benefits of that by improving the city.
So would you do that as door-to-door or mailing, or what would you do?
Since it's such a small area, door-to-door would be great. Then you can really connect with the people that are there, get to know them one-on-one so they can see your face. It wouldn't take more than a couple of days to do that, and it would be a great idea for us just to present to them and answer their questions right there, some of their basic questions that they may have.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, what do you see as the most important issue or issues to be tackled as a CRA director?
Well, I was looking for your guys' plan online. I was not able to find it, so I don't know the specifics of what goals you guys have coming up. But I see that the major issues facing small towns is being able to keep that small town feel while facing the challenges of a decreased budget and a change in social and economic of the city. A lot of the people that live in High Springs are working in Gainesville, and it's getting them to come back into High Springs and shop in High Springs, eat in High Springs, instead of going over to Gainesville to do these things, seeing that they feel value in their own city. I think that's the biggest struggle they have, is just getting their own community to see the importance of keeping the businesses that are there and keeping up the houses that are there and just making it a real livable city, not just some place that you come to at the end of the day, but a place that you want to spend your afternoons and your weekends at, that you want to have your family come and visit, that there's lots of activities for your family to do, for your children to do. And I think that is the biggest issue that's facing community redevelopments across the country.
Okay, thank you. Okay, Member Gestrin.
Thank you. How are you going to assure accountability back to the board, and also how do you stay motivated?
I'll answer the first question. I see the position I'm applying for that is just a tool of the board. It is not to make any decisions on its own. It is simply to fulfill the wishes of the board. That means having lots of communication between the board members and the director. I am big in communication. I don't believe that you can have too much communication. It shouldn't be frivolous, but at the same time, especially because we are talking about government, it needs to be very open and very clear. Nothing needs to look like it's hidden. Everything needs to be presented exactly as it is. So any conversations I would have with either businesses or with the county later on would need to be relayed to the board before any decisions were made. And then your second question?
How do you stay motivated?
Stay motivated. I think I'm highly motivated by doing a good job. I like to see results, and I like to do a good job. I have a lot of internal motivation. I don't need a lot of thanks, pat on the back. A good job really does motivate me to keep going. So if I do a good job for you, I will stay motivated.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right, second question.
Okay.
That was your second question, Member Bass.
You heard that lengthy thing I did a while ago about the merchants coming together and doing the full-page ad in the Gainesville Sun, and then we did the walking map in High Springs, and the whole deal about the billboard out on the interstate. Same question. How do you feel about all that?
Oh, I think marketing is very important. Being involved in marketing for 7 years, and at my previous job, it was in child welfare, and so I had the task of marketing child welfare, which is difficult to do. So I think you need to take a very multidimensional approach, not just putting everything in one. So billboards are great. So let's do billboards, and let's also look at the different community magazines that we can feature. Let's look at our local businesses. One idea I had is my husband is employed at Camp Kalakwa, and they just opened up their big new towers. I don't know if you guys know, but with the addition of that, they've added so many more beds. If we could get with Camp Kalakwa and just present our brochures in each of the rooms, you know, they have over 100,000 unique visitors every year. We would be reaching a huge target audience that is going right through High Springs, but doesn't even realize what High Spring has to offer. And just tapping into that alone would make a huge difference to the community.
Thank you. Member Newcomb?
Okay. My second question to Ms. Gonzalez was about grant writing, and I see that you have grant writing experience. What were some of the grants that you worked on?
So I wrote 3, and I co-wrote several others. The ones that I wrote were for community engagement. It was for the child welfare. We were starting a new center, and we wanted to get the community involved and engaged in it. So I wrote 2 successful grants for that to develop a program to train people to advocate for themselves. So I did that whole one by myself, from the first initiation all the way through budgets, through implementation and evaluation. I also worked on a very large grant that was a foundation grant, and it was a multi-year, multi-million-dollar grant that was for diversion services, so preventing families from coming into the child welfare service in the beginning. Grants are difficult to write, and they are getting tighter and tighter. As you know, especially federal ones, they're very competitive, and the requirements are very strict a lot of the time. I would prefer writing foundation grants because they're a little bit more flexible as far as reporting requirements. With federal grants, a lot of times the money that you get, you have to invest so much just to hire someone to evaluate that, because it's such a large job. So, you know, and it's a lengthy process. But I am comfortable writing grants.
Thank you.
Okay. What experience do you have dealing with a board, and how would you ensure that you have an effective relationship with this board?
Well, both at my previous job, Sung Adventist Academy, and Partnership for Strong Families, I dealt directly with their boards. I was the liaison for both of the companies. I have also dealt with the Alachua County Commission and the Gainesville City Commission as far as getting resolutions for passed and applying for different grants through the Alachua County Board as well. So I think I work very well with boards. I understand the different dynamics, and that everybody needs to be heard and said, and that it's better to have too much information for a board than not enough.
All right. Thank you.
Anything else?
All right. Ms. Gonzalez, is there anything you'd like to address the board on? Okay. And I assume, is there anything you would like to address the board on? Okay.
If you don't mind.
No, no problem.
So I tried finding online a little bit more about this board. I just found the one page, but I didn't find anything else. So I just had a couple of questions regarding what the long-term and short-term goals are. I saw that you are up for plan renewal in 2016.
Correct.
So what are the short-term plans up until then?
Actually, I think those were presented at the last meeting, at the last commission meeting. So that that information should be provided to all the applicants. Then, if we're going to provide them to her, then they need to be provided to all the applicants. Do you have another question? And actually, if it's not on there, our plan should be on the website under our CRA. Can we scan that, Ms. Parman, make sure that's on there? Because I think we had talked about putting it on before. But we should also provide, while waiting on that, provide a copy, either email it or provide a copy to all the applicants.
one more question. You guys kind of talked about it, but why is the CRA making the change from the city manager doing it to an executive director?
Couple of reasons. One, our city manager is got a lot of work to do. And I think also that, and the other members can speak for themselves as well, that I think it's more of a, nothing against our manager, but I think that the board just wants someone that's more accountable to them. I mean, I understand that our manager is accountable to the commission, obviously, but on an individual, day-to-day type of thing, for the type of things we want to get done, we need someone that can go out there and do, devote the time that's needed to do that. Anybody else would like to?
Especially with the businesses and the residential.
Right.
I just had one more thing. So the state statutes are pretty specific about what kind of things fall into the grants that they can get. How is it evaluated to see that it is meeting what the requirements are? Is there any evaluation done now?
Not really. I mean, we have an attorney. As far as grants go, we create our own grants. Okay. And we have our own agreements that people have to sign if they're going to get a grant, application, and that they have to, fill out and put in. But as far as how the CRA board operates and what it does, we follow the statutes, and if there's questions, we ask our attorney. And we also there's the state association, the CRA association, that assists us as well. I think that's answered your question.
Yes, I just wanted to find out what your requirements were. Thank you.
Thank you. All right. Since we still have got two more applicants to interview, then we will not be doing any ranking tonight. So I don't really think that there's anything else to be brought before the board here. Is anybody that has anything to say to this board before we close it out? Yes, Ms. Parham?
Does anybody have an idea when they would like to meet? Any dates? They want to do it this week or next week? Or?
I can do Thursday.
I think I can do Thursday too, but let me look.
I have a question.
Yes, Member Bass.
Since we're the only 4 board members here tonight for these interviews, the 3 board members that are absent tonight, would they be partaking in the interviews if we do this on Thursday?
Well, they certainly can listen to, since it's a public meeting, they can listen to this. They weren't here to ask the questions that they had, but they will certainly be able to participate in the last 2 interviews here. Let's see. There's the school board forum. It's on Thursday night. It doesn't necessarily mean that I have to go to that. If Thursday works out for everybody, then that's fine. I'll be glad to attend on Thursday for this.
Didn't he say anytime after 1 o'clock on Thursday?
Right. But well, it still should be in the evening though, because we do have a couple of board members, at least one board member that can't be here due to work. Okay. I don't want to set something up where that person couldn't be here. Yes. Do you have anything? Yes.
Sure. I am unavailable to meet.
You are
on
unavailable?
Thursday night. I am not available on Thursday night.
Okay.
To meet.
Well, yeah, that's what
me.
I'm thinking.
I
I
just wanna
don't
let you
think
know
it's
that
this.
I'm
It's
not
just
available.
it is the interview process, and we will be ranking those individuals that whatever night we meet. So, and I don't think we need to worry about that so much. You're not to be here. Okay. We had a question from someone in the audience. Please come up and state your name. Okay. Change your mind. Changed your mind. Okay. Okay. No, you have to come up to the podium. Sorry, and you have to state your name. Wait, come up to the microphone and now state your name.
Okay, Stephanie Peak.
Okay.
So I'm curious, do the other candidates that voted, got interviewed, are they gonna re-interview in front of people that weren't here? It seems like they're If they are not here,
You're talking about the two that were just interviewed tonight?
yeah, are they gonna re-interview
No.
in front of the people that?
No, the two or the three members that weren't here can go online, obviously, and listen to the interviews.
Okay.
And then hopefully that's what they will do.
Yeah, that's the thing that.
Right.
Okay, that's all I had to say. I was curious, so, because it's not gonna be, they didn't actually have to participate, so it's kind of unfair.
Right, I understand, but
So,
sometimes. Okay, thank you.
Good question.
Okay, there being no further business, I hereby adjourn this meeting at 7:21 PM. Thank you.